What's up, MMA fans? Here with Ben Smith out of the UK for some perspective on tonight's shenanigans at a UFC 229. I don't know how else to describe it. What would you call? Use one word to sum up tonight.
Chaos. Just
That's
chaos.
that's a good one. Chaos, chaos. That sums it up. Everybody's gonna be talking about the aftermath of what happened after
Yes.
the main event. Um, the fight itself, I guess we should get that out of the way. Um,
Yes.
I mean, just domination, like from beginning to end. There was a point where I think the third round where Khabib kind of like stood in front of Connor and was willing to go like toe to toe with him on the feet, which was a little weird, probably not very smart. Um, but the rest of it was just, I mean, I think was it the second round where he got the knockdown on the feet as well?
Yeah. So there's been all this talk about, it's going to spend the entirety on the mat. And the second that looping right hand dropping into the floor, I mean, I can't say it enough of how many people shit on Khabib's stand up. It's not that bad. It's just because his grappling is so fucking elite that his stand up can never live up to any sort of standard that his grappling is. His stand up for the division is pretty decent. He hung in there with Connor. As you say there, he stood in trade in the third round. Not a wise idea. Connor is a better stand up fighter, of course, but he was holding his own in there.
Yeah, and the other storyline here was that Khabib is very chinny. Um, he ate quite a few punches. None of them really seemed to phase him. So I think we just put that rumor to bed at this point, right? Like we don't have
But
to.
we're still to see him rocked or wobbled yet. So, I mean,
I mean, we saw him eat a spinning wheel kick from Barboza. Like, I don't know. I feel like we could just leave it alone now. No, maybe.
but never forget that Johnson, had him in all sorts of trouble. So,
Uh,
according to any Connor fan.
yeah, I just I don't know. I'll try. I'll try editing that video someday to have it like super slow mo so people can like see it really wasn't that big of a deal. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of honestly, I'm a little uh, fuzzy about the ending. I know um, it was in the fourth round, obviously, but Khabib takes the back and sinks in. I mean, it wasn't even really sunk in. It was over his, almost like doing a face, cranking on his face, and
Yeah, I
then
was going to say,
somehow,
I think the lock was actually on the chin. Like 'cause the commentators were saying, Joe Rogan at his very finest saying it's sunk in when it wasn't, and then he corrects himself, and it was over the chin the whole time. But it seemed that Gregor was just. I don't want to say it, but the people call him a quitter, and I kind of believe it. Like the choke wasn't sunk in; it was around his face more than anything. Maybe it was just him accepting that he was no longer in the fight. I'm not sure, but it's a weird stoppage. It was weird.
well, I mean that's fair because it's now what the that's the fourth time he has four losses. They're all by submission. We saw in the Nate Diaz fight him basically give up. We saw the other two. They're, I mean, you could look them up on the YouTube. They're very shitty video quality. Um, Satankov basically was it him or Joe Duffy that got the knee bar? I can't remember. I think it was Joe Duffy.
Not too sure off the top of my head.
Joe Duffy got a knee bar. There was nothing Connor could do about that. But at least in the UFC, that's two fights now where we have seen Connor just kind of like give up almost. Not in the sense of like I'm throwing this fight. Like we're not saying he's throwing fights, but once he like realizes that things aren't going to go his way, he just kind of tends to, I don't know. That's why I thought the not to get too much into the betting side of things, but the submission prop out there, which wound up hitting for me. Humble brag. It was like 4-1 or something. So, it is what it is. I thought that was good value because with Herb Dean being the ref, you knew it wasn't going to get stopped by TKO, like, unless he was getting murdered. Um, and the chances of it going to a decision, honestly, they did. I mean, were you thinking it was going to go to a decision
I didn't
at
think it'd
some?
make out a third. I was surprised it lasted till the fourth.
No, I'm saying during the fight, though.
Oh,
Once
okay.
it got to the fourth round,
I mean, during the second round, I thought like that should have been stopped there, and then I'll be honest. I thought obviously it turned out that Connor still competed afterwards, but hindsight's a wonderful thing. Second round, Connor was getting battered. I think Herb did look at it closely, but let it go on. And it is a momentous event, so I can understand why you let the fight go on to its entirety. During the third and fourth, I thought if Khabib maybe stayed on their feet, that maybe one way or another it was going to end. But yeah, the more it sort of went on, you was like, wait a minute, like this could go the distance. Like there's a point where he was like, it's been close a couple of times, but it doesn't seem like it's going to end.
yeah, and ultimately, obviously submission happens. Uh, there's a lot of different angles out there. One of the craziest ones I saw is the dead on one, where you see like Khabib like spider monkey fly out of the cage,
Yeah,
like right into the crowd, and I don't know. It gets so like hazy from there. Like who's doing? I mean, obviously Khabib jumps over, but it seems to be Danis is the one who's swinging like immediately, just throwing punches at whoever he can, and then he's kind of separated, and everybody gets separated, and that whole thing kind of the crowd part kind of dies off, and then that's when the in cage stuff starts. And there's, like I said, there's a ton of angles on that one as well. It looks like, and just for the record, I'll put names out there, but we really don't know who's who. Um, I think you pronounce it Abu Bakar. Is that it? The
yeah, Bubakar.
Abubakar. Jesus Christ. Nurmagomedov, who is like the cousin of Khabib, but not really his cousin. I think they're just very close. Um, has like a paprika, the little wig thing, and like him and Connor are
That's
like,
a spice, but yeah.
huh?
Paprika's a spice that's used in curry. I thought you were
What?
going with papaka, but
They're like, they're like he's like throwing it at him, and Connor's like punching back at him, and
yeah,
then the guy in the black shirt gets into the cage. Um, I'm assuming I'm thinking the guy with the what do you call it again? Papaka
yeah, yeah,
is Nurmagomedov, the cousin. And then the guy in the black shirt, I don't know who he is. I think that might be the Dominance MMA guy, the guy who works for
yeah.
Ali. Once again, none of these are solid names. We're just throwing names out there to have some kind of idea of the situation. He runs around and Connor swings at him first, and then the guy in the red shirt has like snuck in the cage by now and is behind him and then unloads on him from behind. That's my that's what I saw from all I've seen like 10 different angles. What did you see?
Yeah, well, upon first reflection, I'll be honest, the first time I saw it, I actually didn't realize that anything happened to Connor. As you say, I was just that sort of lost in the moment of Khabib flying over the cage and sort of Spider-Man leaping into the crowd, which was just crazy, crazy. But yeah, um, the in-cage antics. It looked as if when Connor walked away, it looked as if he was just upset and like, wow, I can't believe this has happened. But upon further reflection, I think he sort of knows where he's done. This is why no pressures have been charged. No charges have been pressed. Sorry. Um, yeah, I think by the looks of it, he swipes first. Whether something said or not, or whether he's been threatened before, we don't know. We're not even sure what Dylan Dennis has said yet. There's been numerous rumors. I think the most circulated one is that he was saying something about his family. If that's true, I know Vladimir was saying before that he can think himself lucky that he's alive still. Um, but yeah, just despicable. I have no words. And despite all the animosity between the two, we knew they weren't going to shake hands. We knew they weren't going to touch gloves. Fair play to anyone that bet on that because that was an absolute moneymaker. That was a banker. But I don't think anybody expected it to spiral this out of control. Did you?
I I kind of, well, I won't pretend like I knew that this melee was going to break out. Did I expect some post-fight antics? Yeah, I completely did. I mean, uh, you have both these corners together. Um, you have McGregor's team, you have Khabib's team, both there. They're both in the venue for the first time since the whole thing went down in New York with the bus attack. So yeah, of course I'm thinking something. I was surprised something didn't happen leading up to fight week, to be honest.
Yeah.
Uh, to this extent, no, I didn't think so. Throw in like Ali and all that other shit, Khabib's manager, and I mean, the likelihood of something like this happening is very high. I mean, Ali and Kamaru Usman were just in a brawl in PFL not that long ago. And you say if you watch the pay per view live, as Khabib is leaving, you see Ali like trying to talk to him. Um, and Mike Russell's done some great work, kind of like digging into him. If you want to read that, you could check that out. We won't get into that. Um, but yeah, like you said, like I expected something, just not so crazy. Um, and I don't the pressing charges thing. Like I think that was a smart play for Connor because well, one, it saves him face, like, oh, like, I don't need to press charges. Like, this is, something that we can handle ourselves or whatever. And then also, um, it could backfire. Like, if they look into this video, it doesn't really look good for anybody, you know? So the best thing is for it to all go away, which it won't. I mean, there will be consequences. Um, the extent are they're not going to be what I've seen thrown out there on social media. Like Khabib will never get a visa again. He'll won't be allowed back in the country, and he'll never fight in the UFC. I'm sorry, but no. Um, that's not what's my prediction for what actually happens. Um, Whoever was involved in that whole in cage thing, the thing that happened. We're not talking about the in the crowd, but the in cage thing. Uh, Even Abu Bakr, if, I think I said that right this time. Um, Even if him and Connor are like mutually swiping at each other, I still think he gets cut. He still hasn't even fought for the promotion, so they'll probably just cut him. Um, if Islam Makachev, who was there, I'm not sure if he was part of the brawl at all, but I know he was there. If he was involved, he might be getting cut. That's not a small name or anything. That's a decent UFC fighter. Um, there's not really any like. Is there anything you can do about Dylan Dennis? No. I mean, fights for Bellator. It is worth noting in the U.S. I mean, if you make verbal threats, that is considered like initiating a fight. So depending on what Dana says and how far this really goes down the rabbit hole, I mean that might come into play, like you said.
What
I
did
don't
you
know how
think
it
of the
is in the
belt?
UK.
What did you think of the belt situation? Of course, we saw after all this ensued, Habib, sorry, was begging for the belt, sort of saying, Dana, where's the belt? Where's the belt? Dana gave his reasoning as, the crowd reacted angrily, maybe thrown things into the cage. Do you think he should have give Habib his crowning moment?
I think Dana was just being Dana. This entire aftermath has just been a whiny little bitch, honestly. Like he's just turned into a baby. Like everything has just been like, oh, like I can't believe this happened. Like this is so despicable. All this stuff, dude. You used the like video for your promos. Like you knew this was gonna happen. You had these two teams together. You like after the fight, like where the fuck is the security? You know, like how does this even allowed to happen in the first place? Give the dude his belt. He got showered with beer anyway on the way out, so why didn't you not just give him his belt? Um, I thought Joe Rogan went way overboard too with this shit he was saying, but he always does. I can't take him seriously on anything he says. Um, there was some like interesting comments Dana White made to the media afterwards, like Nevada's going to hold on to Khabib's check, but Conor gets his. Oh, that's obviously because they're going to fine Khabib and withhold a portion of that. Um, Not the whole 2 million or whatever it is, but some of that money, portion of that money, they'll hold on to. And then, yeah, I don't know. For me, I can just see Dana White right now just thinking like, how do I use this footage of the brawl to like sell the next fight? Honestly, like that's probably what he's thinking about.
Yeah. Who do you think? I mean, the state of the division now, is it safe to assume that Habib is definitely still the champion? Is there a chance he could be stripped?
It depends on the suspension, and I would assume if they do strip him, they'll do some silly interim. God, it'll just become another joke, like
Yes.
it it would be bad for the UFC if they did because they finally like have stability now, like somewhat, somewhat stability. I shouldn't say it's real stability, but it's like if Khabib has the belt, then he has the fucking belt, and he's beaten Connor already. Ferguson is obviously the next challenger. Connor, there's no like disputing anything now. Like Connor is not like the number one contender. He got absolutely manhandled, like just destroyed. So he's out of the picture. You have Ferguson, um, who honestly, did you watch this fight? Because I was a little underwhelmed.
Yeah, I saw the fight. I loved the fight itself,
Yeah,
but
it was an awesome
I
fight,
ex
amazing
I
fight.
expected Ferguson to just walk through and kind of show levels, but he's in a bit of trouble. Like he nearly got finished at the end of the day. Like if we're being realistic, if
He
you if
did,
you view a 50-50 fight, you're saying he's lucky to have survived that. But because Ferguson was the favorite, I think people are just kind of brushing over it. But he struggled. He really did struggle. And I think if not for the injury, then he could have been in all sorts of trouble because we don't know what could happen from that round onwards. Of course, he's got an amazing gas tank. So I mean,
and a
but if
chin.
yeah, if
That's
Petit goes into that last round thinking, you know what, fuck it, I'm just gonna carry on, go for it, try and blast him out. Who is to deny that he would have based off that round performance?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about Anthony Pettis has like one good win in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
Like, and Ferguson comes in as a minus 400 favorite. Uh, he is supposed to walk through Anthony Pettis, and he's getting rocked like all over the place. Like, boom, right hand here, like left here, kick here. And if it wasn't for his chin, like, dude would just be totally messed up. Like,
yeah,
and I mean, maybe he got lucky with the corner stoppage. I don't know. I think this is the second time with Pettis now where he's been in a close war and it's gotten stopped because of some injury. Before it was he broke a rib or something, I think. versus Dustin Poirier, right?
Yeah.
And now it was his hand. It seems. I mean, I'm all, and this is gonna sound hypocritical because I'm always the guy who's like, the corner should throw the towel in more and whatnot, like, and save their fighters, and like abolish the win bonus because they try to fight when there's no chance of them winning. But there's been so many guys that have fought with a broken hand before, and it wasn't it wasn't like Anthony Pettis was losing the fight so badly that the towel needed to be thrown in.
Well, I forget the name. You have to excuse my poor memory, but there's a guy just tonight that broke both hands when he won his fight. I
Really?
forget who it was now. Yeah, there's one of the prelims, and after he said, "Oh, I broke both hands. Let me just quickly get the Topology card up now, and it'll refresh my memory." Yeah, he
It
came
wasn't
out, and after
Reyes, was
the
it?
Scott Holtzman.
Oh, Scott Holtzman. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that seems like it was like 3 years ago now. Oh my
I
God,
know, right? But
it's
now
been a
he
long.
came out and like straight away he's like, "Oh yeah, I broke both my hands," and I was like, "Well, shit." Like, and when you've got people like T doing that, as you say, like, you kind of like, wait a minute, like, what's going on here?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna sound like a hypocrite when I say that he should have fought through it, but I feel like he should have. Regardless, I mean, it turned out to be, obviously, I think they gave it fight of the night. Like, they had to,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that was insane war. There's some really funny pictures out there because of all the blood and both guys smiling at each other and whatnot.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, as far as Ferguson and his future, I don't think it mattered who he faced. If he faced Khabib, if he faced Connor, I think both those guys are on another level. Like, I don't think Ferguson's there.
no. It's sort of we've never really known just how good Ferguson is. It's one of those where he goes so long, like looking decent, and you're like, well, just how good is he? But you can't really say until he has that one defining fight, and I think this was that fight. Maybe it's age catching up with him. I know he's still quite young, I believe, but I mean, in terms of fight age, like, how old is he? Is he
He's
mid
34. He's
30s?
not young.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, yeah, I was right. I was doubting myself then. 34, yeah, so mid 30s. Like, he's not getting any younger, so he's not going to get any better. I don't really see where he goes. Obviously, he should get the title shot next. I think he'll get blown away, and I think that's him done, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, we go from, oh, the lightweight division, like it's so stacked and da 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 da, and now I'm kind of like, so what's next?
Yeah.
Like, I know Dustin Poirier is out there, Eddie Alvarez is out there. Um,
I've been saying this all along. I've always thought that welterweight was better than lightweight, and people laughed, and for a while it did look untouchable. Don't get me wrong, but the problem with this division is none of the top guys seem to face each other, and the alleged good wins on people's records are always from like the number 7 to number 15 range. Like Edson Barboza, for example. They're always those sort of guys. It's never the best fighting the best, and we don't really know just how good they are. So, like, Lee, for example, like, how good's Kevin Lee? Like, do we know?
well,
Uh,
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I was gonna bring up Kevin Lee because I mean, he was beating Ferguson going into round three with staph infection. Like, I mean, what does that say?
yeah.
And he's looked, I mean, pretty insane in all his other UFC fights outside of that. Uh, I think there was some odd loss to somebody who's probably not even with the UFC anymore back in like 2015, and he lost to Iaquinta. But those are like the only blemishes on his record besides the Ferguson fight, which he was clearly not healthy for and shouldn't have been cleared for. Um, so I don't know. He's definitely a player, and then you know with with uh, with Connor, I think the choice is very obvious, right?
Yeah. For me, the only thing he's got, I've seen everyone say is surely it's the Diaz trilogy or retirement.
Yep.
Like,
I mean, win or lose for Nate Diaz, when he fights at UFC 230, it's Ferguson. All right, sorry, it's McGregor. I don't know why I
yeah,
said Ferguson. McGregor. Like it doesn't matter. I don't think the outcome of that fight matters like at all.
no. Especially since Connor's lost as well. If Connor won and then it was Diaz regardless, you'd be like, wait, this just isn't right. But now that Connor's lost, and pretty convincingly lost, if that's a thing, like, yeah, like Diaz win or lose, it's just the right fight to make.
Like, do you think? Okay, let's put a weird situation out there. Diaz actually manages to win the fight, right?
Right?
He's coming in as I like Nate, and Nate's a good guy, but he's coming in as a maybe not on paper, but at least, well, still on paper, a slight underdog on paper, but in reality, a pretty big underdog, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And so, even if he does get the win, they offer him a title shot versus Khabib. Do you- or what do you think he turns that down to fight Connor? Because I think he would.
Possibly. I think if he was to take that fight, it'd be like, look, UFC, like, regardless of the result, like, after this, you have to give me the Connor fight. But is Connor really going to wait around? Like, what would it be, like a year and a half or something for that fight? I'm not sure. I think it was sort of like, I can't think of what I'm trying to look for, but I think it was just like oversaturated by then. Um, I think if the Diaz fight is to happen, it has to be next. So I don't see why he wouldn't. I think Diaz actually does hate Connor. I believe it's not just for the cameras. Maybe not as much as Habib hates Connor, but I think Diaz genuinely really dislikes him, so I think he wants that fight, and he's got money anyway. Let's be honest. So I mean,
I think the difference between Nate and Connor and Khabib is there's at least some like mutual like respect there.
yeah, they respect each other's hustle, but
Like they obviously don't. It's like one of those things where I don't like you, you don't like me, but like we're both here to get money.
yeah,
Like we kind of have like similar. I don't want to say shticks, but like you know demeanors and whatnot. Like the fuck it, I don't care. Like throw it down whenever kind of thing. And there's just none of that with Khabib. It's like it's all personal. It's very personal. It's like religion. Like he was talking about in the press conference. Talked about my dad. He talked about religion, all kinds of stuff. So like that's on a whole other level than Nate, where it's like stupid jokes about making balloons and being like a fake gangster cholo or whatever. Like, do you
yeah.
really think like that bothers Nate Diaz? Like it obviously doesn't get in his head. It doesn't like it's not that same. It doesn't have that same aura to it.
I'm going to ask you something regarding Connor specifically. During I'm not sure if it's just me being biased. Of course, I won't hide that I don't like Conor McGregor very much. I think he's quite irritating, quite boring nowadays in terms of his speak. In the press conferences, I know I wasn't the only one though that kind of found his trash talk pretty bad, pretty boring, repetitive, pathetic. The whole turning up late to press conferences thing. I think everyone's tired of that shit. Even his fans admit they're tired of that shit. So that tied with the fact that McGregor seems to keep on losing these days, is he a lot less of a draw than he was?
Um, he's not a lot less. He'll be less of a draw after this for sure. I mean, it was such a one-sided beating that it really. I mean, the Nate fights. I think people like with Nate Diaz won. They were like, oh well, it was short notice and it wasn't at his weight class, so he gets a pass there. And he won the first round, and the second round was a fluke, or whatever people want to say about that first fight. Second fight, back and forth war, wins majority decision. One judge scores a draw, the other two score for Connor. So, no harm, no foul. His legacy still intact. Beats Eddie. And then the Mayweather fight. I mean, thankfully for him, Mayweather. Is there a better? I mean, you watch more boxing than I do. Is there a better term to use for what Mayweather did to kind of like make the fight more appealing than just being like? Obviously, Mayweather did not fight Conor like he would if he had like he fought Canelo.
Yeah, he gave Conor more respect than the 0-0 bum that he was coming into boxing. He saved face. He made it a show and make sure he didn't rip the fans off. I kind of respect it because Mayweather, sorry, I have no doubt in my mind that he could have ended that in the first round. He could have ended that in the first minute. I'll argue anyone that, but as you say, he let it go on, sort of saved face, made it entertaining, and I'm kind of glad he did because I think it'd have been a bit of a shambles otherwise, and that'd have ruined McGregor's career.
I mean, so at this point, after the Mayweather fight, McGregor's like mystic thing is still kind of like intact because it's like, oh, he's the guy who's he stepped into the boxing ring versus Mayweather and he took rounds from him. I mean, he's never fought in a
Yeah.
boxing match
Landed
before.
more shots than Canelo and Pacquiao did.
Yeah, that whole thing. So it's like
Yeah.
he did better than expected. So like it's kind of like a moral victory or whatever. After this Khabib fight, there's literally nothing like at all to take away from this besides the fact that he is the much inferior fighter. Like not even on the same level as Khabib.
I saw
And
people say he had his chances, and I'm like, what fight was he watching? Because I didn't see Habib for 1 minute even struggling or even phased. Like, seriously, it
I
was
don't
that
know if
bad.
you watched. They didn't watch the fight tonight. The fight tonight, they did not see that one. It takes a lot away from like the aura of him. Like he doesn't have that uh you know, there's not going to be that same everyone's going to be like, "Oh, that's Khabib Malden," basically.
Yeah.
The one thing that the UFC, and I'm sure they will do this, is they will spin Khabib as the bad guy now and make McGregor out to be um, some kind of like victim, good guy. They'll do something like that. I'm curious to see how ESPN covers this and especially ESPN because they're gonna have the UFC TV rights starting next year. Well, that's like
Yes.
less than 2 months away. So, and obviously they want to preserve McGregor as this draw. So I'm interesting to see how the coverage goes. But I coming into this, I knew this fight was not going to do 3.5 million pay-per-view buys.
Have there been numbers released? How did it do?
No, I mean they won't come out until like it usually takes until like the middle of the week. So like Wednesday
I
ish.
think 1.5 tops. I think like 1.2, 1.3 is realistic.
Yeah, I was saying somewhere in between the two Nate Diaz fights um, was more realistic. The 3.5. unless they skew the numbers and decide that they're going to count pay-per-views from like different countries and
Yeah,
I could not imagine anything close to that. I mean, especially considering what the Mayweather McGregor fight did, like there's no way.
no.
And they're charging $65 now. They raised the price on the pay-per-view. Like, come on.
Even as breaks are gonna have to start paying pay-per-view soon. Tragic.
I had to pay $20 just to get into a casino's like theater room where they were showing it. So
Worth it though. I imagine it was worth it.
I mean, yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's a lot better than uh I don't well, yeah, it has its I don't know, sitting in a theater with a bunch of other fans, or I should say, I use fans rather loosely because I don't think a lot of these guys could hold up a conversation about MMA for more than like 2 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it is just like I remember some guy just repeatedly saying, "Oh, he heard him," like in every single fight, and I was just like, I was so I wanted to go home and like finish the fights at home at one point. It's just like I don't want to be around the casual MMA fans. Like I don't this sounds like really like douchebaggy and like kind of like elitist, but like I'd much rather just like be at a bar with like 5 or 6 people that I know their shit.
Yeah. It's always the same though. You always get those people when you're out, so I mean it is what it is.
Yeah. Uh you know, so I mean UFC 229, shithouse. Um they're going to talk about this for God knows how long. Um, I know that they arrested 3 of Khabib's teammates, cornermen, management company, whatever the fuck you want to call them, all related to him. So that'll play out. Is Khabib gonna get arrested? No, he's not gonna get arrested. Is Khabib gonna get suspended? I mean, how many months do you think Khabib? I think Khabib probably gets the same amount of months suspended as he would a medical suspension.
I personally think 6 or 12, but I'm not sure. I think maybe six kind of realistic.
And I
But
don't think they strip him if it's 6 because that's not long enough.
yeah, exactly. I mean that's how long you'd wait anyway for a next title fight as champion. So
Yeah.
I mean,
If you're looking at 6 months, then it's just like you might as well just look at it like medical suspension, training camp, whatnot, and all that. I mean, like we said, there's nowhere. I mean, McGregor's. You want an immediate rematch that? Like, not only was the fight so one-sided, you also have the outside the cage stuff. It's like I don't think these guys are ever gonna see each other again, right?
I don't buy that Connor won a round. Like all three judges gave him round three. I personally wasn't buying that. I didn't think Habib actually lost a round. And if that's the case and people do agree with me, then Habib still hasn't lost a round in the UFC. So I mean,
Is there an actual scorecard out there?
yeah, the official scorecards, I think it is like 10-9. I think the second might have been a 10-8 as expected. And I think all three judges gave a third round to Connor. It was a lot closer of a round, don't get me wrong, but I still think Habib probably got the better of it.
That's pretty brutal. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I if we are we were we using the new we weren't using the new rule. I remember seeing quite a few 10-8s throughout the night though, was the thing. Like there was even a 10-8 in the Watterson Harry fight. Did you see that?
I saw it, yeah.
So I think they were being really liberal with the 10-8s. So if we're being really liberal with the 10-8s,
Yeah.
I would
I mean,
say
that second was pretty brutal.
yeah. So you give the second, and I would say even the first, because it was literally just Connor didn't do anything.
Yeah. I guess the other thing in the first is, I think they were saying in the commentary as well, like Habib wasn't throwing anything. It's more of just a draining process, I think.
Yeah, yeah, which is exactly. I mean, it really worked out in his favor. Uh,
Yeah. I will say one thing, for all the talk about how one-sided this fight was, like fair play to Conor for the conditioning, because to be drained like that by, I'm gonna say it, the best ground and pound technician, probably the best grappler in the whole of MMA. Like I've gone out there and said it, and then come back like even in the third, like to stand and trade and still look relatively sharp. Like that's something I didn't think he had in him. And I don't think many people thought he was gonna have a chance past round two. So if anything, he's worked on that clearly, and fair play for that. Maybe that can put him in good stead for the Diaz fight if that's another high intensity fight.
yeah, definitely. I definitely think after I thought after the second round he was done. So I mean,
Yeah,
come back in the third round and even make that close. I don't think he won it like the judges do, but to make it close like that, even though that's a tough one because I think that was also around Khabib kind of like he does this. Have you noticed in his fights he always takes one round off?
he just fucks about and has a little spur.
He has one round in every one of his fights where he just kind of like, oh, I'll just kind of like take this one off and like catch a breather.
Yeah,
It was
sort of
a,
like tries jabbing his way around the octagon. Like,
even
okay,
fighting McGregor, who can like, who can, it sounds so cliche, but end him with one of those left hands. He's still dancing around and like trading with them and kind of just playing around with them.
yeah.
That's insane.
The fact that like as the consequence of him, like it's not even like he's boxing from range or just keeping on the feet. He's standing toe to toe. Like
Just standing
he
right
is
in
a
like
crazy
standing right
man.
in front of him.
He was looking into his eyes, and at one point, like he had his hands down. He had one for the power punch that was like at sort of chest height, and then one down by his waist. I'm like, who are you? Like, who is this?
Standing like right in front of him in punching range, like with no like hesitation at all. It's and he did the same thing versus Iaquinta and everybody like Brendan Schaub and all these I use the term analysts very loosely. We're like, well, if he does that versus Connor, he'll get knocked out in 30 seconds. And it's like, well, he did it and nothing happened. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you think Conor McGregor's power is a bit overrated? Like,
Oh
it
yeah.
did land a couple of
Oh,
times, and like
big time.
it was a piece that dropped him. So like, I mean, that for me is just the height of irony.
I mean, the fact that he never even finished. I mean, he finished Eddie Alvarez, but he never knocked him. He was never unconscious. He got like
No.
a couple knockdowns. Yeah, he knocked Nate down, but some of those. The weird thing about the second Nate Diaz fight was a couple of those the leg kicks played a part in those. Where his legs, he didn't really have his legs under him. And then also, I think he really wanted Connor to follow him down to the mat. And
Yeah.
I really don't know how much they were knockdowns as they were like, let me go down and see if he follows me, where he'll be in my guard. And we all know Nate Diaz's guard is like, one of the best MMA. So I don't know how much stock to really put in those knockdowns. And then the Aldo one, I mean, it's like Aldo rushes right into his left hand. Like, of course, that's going to knock somebody out when you have the force of you running into the punch and the punch being thrown
Yeah.
at the same time. So, do I think his power is over? Yeah, big time. Like, could the people who think he could go to 170 and like be able to have that same kind of power, that if that power would translate to 170 are insane. Like imagine him fighting Woodley, like, you know?
To think that that fight was even discussed before this fight, and like I'll hold my hand up and say I said it myself that if he somehow beat Habib, Woodley might happen because he's mentioned it. Like the thought of that fight is astounding. Like we saw Till, and I'll hold my hand up and say I thought he was going to win. I really did, and he just got absolutely like schooled. Like it's embarrassing. Like, and he's a lot better of a striker, I'd say, and a lot better of a fighter in general, I'd say, than Conor McGregor is. A lot bigger as well. So like, if
Huge.
he's if he's getting schooled, like what's happening to Conor? Like, what would that fight even be? Like, Woodley's like, oh well, I can box him 'cause I'm faster. Could probably knock him out because I'm a heavier hitter. Or do I just like sub him and get him to the floor? Like, Woodley could just like toy with him. Like, if there was a prop for like decision, TKO, and submission all in one, then I think that's like the one fight I'd ever bet in.
I don't think you can get that. I think it's
Just
called
like
the money
5 minutes of round five.
line. Yeah, I think that's just the money line. I don't, speaking of betting rounds though, I don't have it available to me at the casinos out here. I was like limited to just the props on the main event. That was it. Uh,
Right.
they don't offer a lot of props at the casinos, unfortunately. But if I did have access to that, I would have sprinkled some money on Derek Lewis in round three. That guy always seems to get a round three finish. I don't know what it is with him.
I don't I don't know if it's all the his opponent's naivety or whether he's actually better in round three. It's hard to tell because
Is
guys
it?
just seem to be coasting along and be like, oh yeah, easy win this. I'll put on a show for the fans now, just see out the round. But their version of seeing out the round is standing in front of him. Like, you don't stand in front of Derek Lewis. You get the fuck away and you kick at range. Volkov had like what, a 4 or 5 inch leg reach advantage. Like,
Crazy. Yeah.
kicking him from the outside. Like, what are you doing?
That's what he did most of the fight. I mean, he almost finishes him at one point. It looks like he's gonna finish Derek Lewis, and then he takes his foot off the gas. He's clearly up 2018, and then up. You know, he's up. I don't know what he's up. He's winning the fight. The fight's in the bag. There's like 20 seconds left or something, and he's just standing there in front of Derek Lewis for no reason and gets flatlined. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, why would anyone ever? I don't even know what to do with that. Like, if Derek Lewis gets a title shot off of that,
Is he the worst heavyweight title challenger ever? Like, seriously?
like,
Like,
what?
Derek Lewis.
And it's like we already know UFC is in a weird state right now because it's like well, there's so many matchups where if title matchups where we're just gonna be like, really, you
I
know?
can't wait till Ngannou beats Blades and they make that rematch.
I mean, but think
Could
about
you
it. You
imagine?
have, you have whoever's fighting Khabib is gonna be. I mean, that's not gonna be if Ferguson fights Khabib. I don't really think that's competitive. If Derek Lewis fights Daniel Cormier or whoever the hell, I don't know, because heavyweight's such a mess right now. Um, I guess it could even be Stipe, huh? Or John Jones. God knows who. I mean, he's gonna lose all three of them. Um, like, uh, we have this upcoming flyweight fight that was gonna headline UFC 230, and then it's not headlining to UFC 230 between Eubanks and Shevchenko. It's just like, how many of these title fights are just gonna be like total mismatches?
Yeah. But what can UFC, what do they really do about this? And the thing is, the worrying thing is, like, everyone's on about more divisions. If we're getting these title fights now and these matchups now, what are these future divisions going to be like? Like, seriously.
I would say that the merging the bigger lightweights and the smaller welterweights would be a good idea. Um, I don't know. I don't. There's. It's so thin at middleweight and light heavyweight. I don't really think you can do anything there though. And I
Mm,
don't think welterweight's big enough to support having spreading out between lightweight and like having the smaller welterweights go down to lightweight and then the bigger welterweights going up to middleweight. Like I don't think the division's that deep, you know.
no.
If you combine Bellator's and UFC's welterweight division, then yeah, we could talk about that. But as it is, I mean, the UFC has foolishly left a lot of good welterweights go over to Bellator, so you can't do that.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one at the minute. I don't really know what they're going to do. I mean, da Dana was just like 100% against this 165-pound thing, and I'm kind of all right with that for now because we don't really know where any of the divisions are. Like, Woodley's going to retire soon, let's be honest. As you say, Habib, we don't even know if he's going to be stripped or not yet, so we'll call him the champ. I don't know for how long, if he stays that way.
It'll be one of
He,
those things though, like you remember when Connor, I mean, and it was even it'll just be like, oh well, whoever fights for the belt, it won't be like a real belt, Like
yeah, yeah,
if they do
like the paper champs.
if they do Ferguson versus the winner of, let's see, this is where it gets
Poirier?
like Poirier and yeah, like that, like are people really gonna think that winner is better than Khabib? Like no. So I don't know. Is there, as far as the rest of the card, uh, Formiga upset Sergio Pettis. Um,
That was an absolute snooze fest.
yeah, it wasn't very competitive. I mean, Formiga has done this to a lot of guys, and that I think that kind of puts the nail in the coffin as far as Sergio Pettis ever getting a title shot, considering he's already lost to Henry Cejudo. Um,
Yeah.
and that
We've
sucks
got
because he's one of the few guys to have a win over Joseph Benavidez.
we've got Lad and Reyes who both announced themselves as serious contenders.
Who?
Both Reyes and Aspen Ladd.
Oh,
They
yeah,
both they both look
Reyes.
really
I mean,
solid.
Reyes made a statement, even though he didn't get a finish. I mean, he probably could have, should have. Um, Another one where he like a fighter conspicuously just steps off the gas for no reason.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that, but definitely could have finished OSP. That makes it 4 straight wins in the UFC, and he's on a fast track right now to at 10-0 to being a contender. Aspen Ladd also just because of circumstances and whatnot. 135 is so thin. She could also fight at 145. She has trouble. She's a big girl, and she struggles making weight. So she could fight at 145 if they ever get that division kicked off. And beating another, girl who's fought at 145 tonight, kind of makes that case even better. But yeah, that was, I mean, she did what she did. She's done like basically the same thing in every fight besides the Eubanks fight. Um, Eubanks is the only one tough enough to kind of outlast her, but she's grounded out everyone else she's fought.
yeah. Would you be completely against a title shot next, or do you think maybe one more fight and then that's a fight to make?
Um, I'd be fine with it right away. I mean, the division is so thin. It's just one. It's like men's. Well, how flyweight used to be. It's a little bit different now with Cejudo as the champ and Demetrius as doing whatever. Um, but yeah, the division's so thin. I mean, what are you gonna do? Have Holly Holm fight Amanda Nunes like again? Really?
Yeah,
I mean, there are like Vieira's way up there too, so
yeah. I
she's
think she's
probably
logically next.
she's probably ahead of her. Yeah, I mean, you could throw Aspen Ladd out there with one of the old timers, so to say, like Pena or Pennington, something like that. Kat Zingano, even some veteran, some get another veteran win.
Definitely.
But I mean that's pretty much it for UFC 229. I mean, I try not to talk about the drama too much, but I mean it's just kind of the main storyline out of tonight. So what are you gonna do? I'm sure it'll be. I don't know. You guys don't really have like ESPN over there, so it doesn't. You don't have this sports banter 24/7, do you?
No, we have a choice, but like next to nobody here has the ESPN channel. So
And I'm sure if they did, it would be about like football, like not American football, but football.
yeah, for sure.
Maybe more
Like
interesting.
I caught the Fox Post channel where Bessie and Woodley argued about who did what, why it happened, etc. for about 2 hours. But yeah, we don't really get as much insight into the UFC as you guys do.
Yeah, so at least for people who might be listening and aren't from the states, I mean, it'll be in the news cycle for quite a bit. Like they'll keep it on ESPN because ESPN is literally just a sports channel that runs 24/7, and it'll be on there, and they'll have Ariel come on there and talk about whatever, and Chael Sonnen, and Fox will continue covering it at least until the end of the year. I guess when the Fox contract is up, they're just gonna forget about the UFC. like I mean, it's less than 2 months. It's like 7 weeks or something right now
Yeah,
where the Fox contract is up. So I don't know if they're just like, yeah, well, fuck you guys. Like we're gonna focus on what are they buying? Pro wrestling. So I don't know, but yeah, I'm bracing myself for all the UFC or Khabib. I should say Khabib takes are gonna be hot and furious.
for sure. I'm just waiting for one of the two to come out and make a statement, to be honest with you. I know Habib showed himself at the post conference and he
Yeah,
apologized to the
I guess
media.
we should have talked about that. I mean, he apologized, said this isn't my best side. Basically, you could translate that roughly. Him not showing his best side. And he said something about his dad's gonna punish him basically whenever he sees him for being an idiot, and like uh, he also did kind of like say like, why are people talking about me jumping over the cage when Connor's done this and this and this and this, like listing all the shit he's done. And then he also said, MMA should be more like there shouldn't be so much disrespect back and forth. Like the trash talking is fine, but guys are like crossing lines talking about religion and family and whatnot and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
uh, that was basically his whole statement, was just kind of like firing back and being like very defiant, but at the same time like apologizing to Vegas and Nevada State Athletic Commission and whatnot.
pretty much.
Should he have even spoken?
I don't know if he should have, but I'm glad he did. Like, it'd have been so easy to have took a coward move and just sort of left without saying a word. That'd have been the easy way out. He didn't have to show his face to anybody. I know Dana didn't speak to anybody or want to say anything. I know Connor left as soon as he could, so it is what it is. Um, I think it's quite respectful, if anything, especially to apologize. He could have easily just gone in and bad mouthed us earlier. He could have just insulted and laid it on Connor and his team for the entirety of his speech, but he sort of gained some respect and dignity back, I think, in that.
Yeah, I mean, I hope this is it. I hope we don't have to deal with this anymore. Like I said, it's already going to be in the news cycle, but I really hope it doesn't continue. Like, like Dylan Dennis, please just keep your mouth shut. Like, I really don't want to hear you talk about like, dude, you were like cowering behind security. Like the tough guy act thing just like has to stop, man. You know. So
Yeah,
I'm over it. I hope everybody else gets over it very quickly. Go watch, like Grabica Hitman said, one of the great Twitter users out there. Go watch like the Diaz brothers like brawl with Mayhem and all the other crazy shit that's happened in the UFC before. Like this really isn't groundbreaking or anything like that.
no,
Or even watch boxing. This has happened in boxing. We'll go watch some boxing brawls. Like, come on.
yeah. Like, anyone just go watch Zab Judah after his loss, like you'll find it.
Which one?
Zab Judah, I can't remember which loss it was exactly, but he lost a fight and it's like he's possessed by a demon. Like he went scary. Like to the point where he was flipping, screaming, went to punch the ref, went to punch everyone,
Oh
and
my!
it took about 15 guys to circle and hold him back from doing anything. Like he was off the hook. Like I'm not talking Superman dive, I'm talking ballistic, possessed by something. Like that was just weird. That was weird.
So
And
yeah.
of course, there's the thing I don't know if you saw it, but there's a guy that jumped. I think it was a Darrell fight. It's a high profile fight, and like Darrell's uncle or something comes in the ring and punches the opposition fighter in the face.
Oh,
So
I
I
remember
mean,
that. Yeah, there was also,
yeah.
like the kickboxing thing where like the whole team like jumps in there and starts beating up the guy.
Oh no, that was a different one actually. That was Glory. That was
Yeah, and
Myrtle Grownheart or something like that. I think it might be. I think it's
yeah.
Grownheart. And so yeah, this just shows. I mean, it happens more often than we'd like to think. It's just that given the enormity of this event, it's in the mainstream media. It's blown up, and it's not that unnormal of a thing to happen. It's just given the
Well,
severity of the occasion, it's sort of blown up, and I think it's got a bit out of hand.
yep, we got to brace ourselves. That wraps up our UFC 229 aftermath, though. Um, leave any comments, any questions. We'll try to get back at you. Thanks for listening, guys.